Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next webinar in the Mirrors webinar series for May. Today, we're going to be talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and we've got over 500 people registered for this webinar. So there's a lot of interest out there, and we know that because we've been out talking to a lot of providers, and almost every single person that we speak to is very excited about AI and its potential for all aspects of our life, but now for the industry that we work in and that we love. Before we go any further, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and the custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to the land, sea, and community, and we pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today. Just wanted to remind everybody this hour that you're spending with us is a CPD point. So if you do need to collect those, please make sure that you do. And please take advantage of our chat. So we have people in the chat monitoring your questions. If you have a question, you're just as likely to get it answered there and then if it's simple. If not, we might be able to pose some of those questions to the panel a little bit later on in the session. But we do review every one of your comments, and we use that to feed it into our content that we publish through our various channels throughout the month. So today, with the usual format, we're going to talk about some of the poll findings. We surveyed you, asked you some survey questions when you registered, and so we'll have a look at those. We'll introduce you to our panel and have a quick chat to them. Then we're going to hear some content from Rob Covino, from what we've learned from the last 6 to 9 months, where we've been speaking to so many providers and already started a number of projects in the AI space. And what have we really learned, and what is it all about? And then we're going to go back to our panel. And if we've got time, we'll look at some of the questions in the chat. But the hour goes pretty quick. Let's see how we go. Now, before we get on to the survey questions, some of the opening comments I wanted to make is that this is not going to be a training course on AI. I assume that many of you already appreciate AI and what's happening within the world. And you might be an expert in AI. You might know a lot about it. You might object to the use of the term AI because it's not really that. It's machine learning. So for those who really know a lot about it, forgive us. We're going to use AI as a generic term for the purposes of this conversation. But AI, the way that we want to present it to you today is really about how this technology, emerging as it is in the world, is really an opportunity for aged care to solve some of the problems, nagging, annoying problems that have been hanging around, and really a way of us looking to leverage a really good, interesting and exciting piece of technology to solve problems today. It really isn't real about the AI models themselves and the algorithms. They are a very clever piece of tech, but really it's all about the data that they use. And that's really what's been holding aged care back, we think, is really our ability to use our data, have clean data, bring our data together. Everyone's heard questions about interoperability and all these big words that get used, but it really comes down to being a data problem. How do you get your data out? How do you use it? How do you clean it up? How do you transform it potentially into a more usable form? So AI is not magic. It's in some ways it's quite dumb. You've got to teach it everything, but it is a very sophisticated piece of programming, and that really is where the opportunity lies. Can we use these really quite sophisticated algorithmic neural network kind of programming to really answer questions or deliver information and results that we've never been able to do before? And I also wanted to highlight the fact that the two really big use cases for AI in aged care are around productivity, around efficiency. Can we get these clever algorithms to use our data to help us, not replace people or decision making or the clinical mind, but support decision making and make us more efficient? So number one, can we become more efficient? Number two, can these clever algorithms, these neural networks, actually use the data to help us see things we can't see now, know things that we don't know now? And really, when you look at things like our clinical repository of our clinical management systems, care management systems and this large repository of information, just as one in medication management, all of these other data repositories that we've got, large amounts of data that we really aren't using very well right now. Can we use these models to look into those large repositories of data and tell us something that we don't know now, something about the way that we can improve the care of the residents in our facilities. So we're very focused. Meris is very focused. We've always been about the data. We've spent 15 years working with, in industry data, Medicare data. We've got 90,000 beds worth of Medicare data that we use to deliver insights all the time. And is this another opportunity now for us to go into looking at clinical data and seeing what kind of insights that can add? But we are coming at it from a very practical point of view. How do we use this whiz-bang technology that's taking the world by storm? You use it when you order an Uber. You use it, the driver uses it when they're in the Uber. It's predictive text. It's in all of the things that we do at the moment. How do we use this technology today to in a very practical way to solve problems today? So that's what we want to really focus on. So we asked you some questions as you were coming in, and you can see this is 364 responses to these questions, but just to point out that those 364 responses represent 250 or 300 organizations, so providers. So this is a very big snapshot of the industry right now in a very simple poll. So what's the likelihood that you will look at implementing an AI project in the next 12 months? Well, 18% very likely, 21% likely, and 39% somewhat likely. 2% we've already done it. So, that adds up to 80% likely or have already implemented an AI project in the next 12 months. So it's a very short time frame. And certainly that reflects our experience going out and talking to dozens and dozens and dozens of providers. So AI presents a significant opportunity to increase efficiency. So this is one of those use cases, efficiency. How do people feel about that? Well, there's 76% right there that agree strongly and strongly agree. So more than three quarters strongly agree that this is about efficiency. The not sure's the 24%. That doesn't mean they don't know. It means our experience is that the people are waiting to see. They haven't seen it yet. So I think that's a fair enough comment. AI presents a significant opportunity to increase insight from data analysis. This is the one where we are looking for something to tell us something we don't know from the information, something we could probably find if we had enough time. So if everyone could dedicate enough time to trolling through the data and looking at it, we could figure it out ourselves. We just don't have time for that. So can it speed that up and help us to see things that we can't see now? So a huge 85% strongly agree. That's a very big and again reflects our experience in our conversations where people are a lot more interested. I mean, the efficiency is great. The industry definitely needs efficiency, certainly with shrinking margins and care funding, etc., and the pressure that's on the accommodation and non-care side. But so efficiency is going to be key for the industry. But people are much more fascinated by what it can tell us that we don't know now. So I think that's a very key theme. And then we thought, here are six use cases that we've heard quite often in our conversation. So we thought we'd put them up there and see if people sort of fancied one more than the other. And you definitely could choose multiple ones, but it's really interesting that the spread is really quite even, isn't it? And sort of predicting changes in resident care needs, predicting workforce demand and skills mix requirements, but really seeing what implications there might be on your rosters a bit further out, simulating outcomes to manage occupancy fluctuations, again, seeing fluctuations in occupancy a bit further out, identifying revenue opportunities for additional services, looking for patterns in care needs, not just for care, but for the opportunity to provide wellbeing programs and other opportunities for additional services, curating monthly care statements. The monthly care statements are written into the new standards. They're definitely coming, and there's a lot of speculation and a bit of fear out there that that's going to be a huge amount of work, particularly to the extent that it requires a clinical input. So that's a huge amount of work. Is that something that AI can do for you quite easily? And everyone's seen the impact of ChatGPT and other models on that kind of work. and enhancing consistency and quality of clinical documentation. There's a huge opportunity for AI to troll through your clinical documentation and provide guidance on what might be able to be improved or completed or filled in, or contradictions removed, etc. So improving the quality of data. And with a large sort of English as a second language workforce, there is a lot of trouble with keeping up to speed with documentation and the quality of the information and the consistency of the information, and the fact that most of the information in the clinical system is quite subjectively written. So it's not all that standard, all that consistent across different facilities within an organization, let alone between organizations and across the whole industry. So very even the spread there, I think. Probably the highest one is the enhancing consistency and predicting changes in residents' needs and predicting workforce demand. So I just wanted to go straight to the panel now and introduce you to them. Thanks so much, Sue and Phil and Justin, for making some time to be with us. These webinars definitely come to life where we hear the voice of the provider and what you guys really think. So the first question I wanted to pose to you now, and we'll get later on to the looking forward and what to do about AI going forward. But to now, I just wanted to find out a little bit about what's been going on in your own organizations. Have you been talking about AI, thinking about AI? What's the role that technology and innovation plays in your organization, and how much have you been thinking about it? Sue, why don't you kick off?
Thanks, Andrew. So, yeah, innovation for us is one of the cornerstones, I guess, of our strategy, but also.
Sorry, Sue, I'm having trouble hearing you. Are you?
Yeah.
Just your mic, it's very muffled.
How's that? Is that better?
No, it's still quite muffled. You weren't muffled earlier, so that's strange. It's just changed. We were having a conversation about the quality of internet. That's that could be affecting us. Rob, are you getting that muffled as well?
Yes.
All right, Sue, we'll come back to you, see if we can sort that out. Phil, why don't you jump in?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Look, Mercycare is really embracing AI. Today we have a few projects that are either in place or underway. The first of which we've partnered with Mirrors on a research project. It's looking at multiple uses of AI, but initially focusing on optimising our ANAC funding and allowing our clinical team to be freed up, I suppose, to spend more time on care. We're replacing our home care software with a new product that's going to help us schedule our staff with route optimization powered by machine learning. We're working on building an AI policy and procedure chatbot as well for our frontline aged care staff, effectively allowing the staff to talk to our policies and procedures. They'll be able to ask a question in any language, and the chatbot will search our database, provide them with information they're looking for, and even give them references that they can just click on in a single click and take them to that section or part of our policy. We're also using AR avatars to deliver toolbox training to our staff. We're doing this in multiple languages with avatars that also reflect the diversity of our team themselves. And yet we haven't had to hire a translator or hire an actor, or we don't even own a camera tripod. It's all done with AI. I guess most recently, the release of ChatGPT 4.0 last week has certainly helped my personal productivity. Yesterday, I was doing one of my favourite tasks each quarter, which is writing my board report. And I was able to drop PDFs, updated PDFs from the federal budget, from Catholic Health Australia, from ACPA, and add a link into GPT 4.0 to the Department of Health and Budget Information website. And I asked GPT to prepare a suitable summary for a board report. Again, then I was able to communicate with it and talk to those documents and drill down into areas I had specific interest. And it created the report for me effectively. I could also upload the Stuart Brown quarterly survey results into a different chat. And again, summarising that really deep 47 slide data pack into a really succinct board report. I was even able to use the free add-on in GPT called Diagrams to redesign some of the Stuart Brown graphs to fit the Mercycare style guide. and then highlighting data that I wanted the board to focus in on. And all this using language prompts, not coding, but actually just asking it to do that, and it did that sort of intuitively. This is the first time I've used ChatGPT to summarize more than a few paragraphs or a couple of pages. So I checked every figure that PAC had given me just to make sure it didn't create anything as it's known to do. And all the figures were correct. So it did only look at that source that I go with. That would normally take me hours of reading those packs and highlighting them, summarizing them. And yesterday it took me 90 minutes to get to that point. And that includes checking the data. And if I'm honest, maybe spending a little too long playing with those graphs to get them to look exactly how I'd like them to look. And the best thing about this for me is I come from a political background. I have absolutely no experience in IT. I've never written a single line of code in my life. I struggle to set up air printing on my printer at home, but just a few natural language prompts, I was able to do all that in 90 minutes. Anyway, it really is changing how I work.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting, Phil. And it's a great quote that says, your job won't be replaced by AI; it will be replaced by somebody using AI. And I think that's the opportunity for all of us. But also, someone made the comment, I'll make it now, that the next generation of employees will be growing up in a world where this kind of information support is native, is natural. They get it in all facets of their life. So when they come into our workforce, the idea that they would have information support like that is will be normal for them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Justin, let's find out what's going with you.
Yeah, so I guess we're at the early stages. We're trying to use it more for the more, as I said at the start, efficiencies, more around our quality data. Our team spend probably 2 weeks a month just pulling the data out of all of our systems and then analysing and then trying to make the changes from that. So we're really trying to automate as much as that as we can, because it's really just dead time. And we'd rather be spending that time focusing on the outcomes for the residents and the staff versus trawling through the data, trying to pull it out. We've got a couple of different clinical systems across our sites. So a lot of the stuff that we have to do is manual. So we're trying to tap into that and use some of these AI models to automate a lot of that data. Whilst it's within the care system itself, we're trying to pull out the most relevant data, and then we can do the analysing from that. And picking up from what Phil said, anything that we've trusting that data at the moment is probably the challenge. So anything that comes out of any of these models, you still second guessing yourself, going, well, can it really be that good? Let me just double check it. So I think once we get used to it is, I think there'll even be more efficiencies. So for us, it's really been about trying to find the way, like everyone struggling with staffing, challenges with workforce, trying to find the best way that we can use any sort of technology. And it's not about that, using it for, hey, we can reduce wages if we do this. It's about using our wages better. And that's really what the focus is to try and make sure that any model that we put in place, we can make sure that all of that data that we're gathering has a direct outcome to the residents. We know we've got the compliance and those sort of things that we obviously have to do, but it's using the data that we're capturing rather than using the data that we've got rather than just doing it for the sake of it. So we're really trying to make sure that data is useful. And we've partnered with Mirrors on some of that. We're doing some other stuff as well. So we're really just trying to use that technology to work for us and free up as much time as we can to get better outcomes for the residents and for the staff.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. That's two great cases. One insight, one efficiency. That's terrific. Sue, are you having any more luck?
Hopefully, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Terrific.
Perfect.
Terrific. So for our organisation, I guess innovation is a cornerstone, because we know that if we don't innovate, particularly operating in some of the smaller communities we operate in, we will not be able to, I guess, withstand some of the pressures that come along with funding and operational requirements. So for us, you know, whilst it's not technically AI, our age health offering is, I guess, an intersection between technology and providing a workforce solution. But behind that, we are building algorithms within our platform to collect data so that we can move our clinical model from a stop and fix model to one that's really about prediction and prevention. And I guess that speaks to what you were talking about earlier, Andrew, in the sense that from a clinical perspective, we have to be able to, I guess, be a lot smarter in terms of how we manage our clinical outcomes for older people, because at the end of the day, that's what everybody wants, is, you know, those better outcomes. And right now there's really not a lot of I guess programs that can bring everything together in a way that you can analyze it properly and be able to undertake that predictive analytic function. So hopefully with our offering, the more data we're able to collect, obviously that takes time. We should be able to, you know, at least move in that direction relatively quickly.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, let's keep moving, and we'll come back to the panel a little bit later and hear their thoughts about what they're going to be working on or what they see the industry moving towards next. Over to you, Rob, to tell everyone a little bit about what we've been doing with the industry and what we've been learning about how to use AI in the industry today.
No, thank you for that. And some great questions already coming through, which I just had to take the opportunity to respond to, but also weave in through this because I think everyone's aware due to the natural phenomenon of, you know, what's occurred with OpenAI when it launched in November of 2022 and just the uptake. And certainly it was really the first point in time when we could interact with a model in a way that you had an interface and it wasn't really behind, you know, structures and codes or in closed architecture. But I guess what that's leading is that, you know, AI is here today, and I think people are becoming more and more aware of it. And that's really why we started this research program side of it. And the reason why we use the terminology research program is because really it's not software in a way that you release a beta, then you add more features. You're really training these models to think and infer and act and provide outcomes on very specific use cases that you want to explore. And that's really where a lot of this, you know, started. And it's also why part of our role with the research programs is to support, you know, the ethical adoption, the responsible adoption, the commercial adoption of this new technology and the benefits it can bring, but also support an industry as we start to explore it and look at how it makes our lives and our roles today, you know, much better than what we hear about around the world. And even some of the boards I've spoken with, you know, asking their exec teams to say, are we doing anything with AI? And that wave is coming. But some of the key areas that, you know, Andrew's alluded to some of these, so I'll step through them quickly, but, you know, big focus on non-direct care activities. I mean, now with the government and the ANAC model funding only direct care personnel and those, you know, those we've defined, everything outside of that is really areas where we look for efficiency gains, you know, dropping costs, improving outputs, productivity, and just addressing and augmenting, you know, manual tasks that we still play out today. And I think Phil gave a great example of one in preparation of his board papers. I mean, that's a great example of using a tool as a performance enhancement to help you with a task of writing and synthesizing information for your boards. The other aspect of decision making is about seeing things that we don't typically see as human beings. I mean, there's a lot of information and we catch things, but when you look at the constructs of data and big data, and specifically, I think the example that stuck with me that we talked through was with Moneyball and what the Oakland Athletics did with sabermetrics approach of really measuring data points that no other baseball team had measured in their history. And when you start to do things like that, you can start to see areas where you can take competitive advantages or have gains. And that's a great use case of, and also the reason why Mirrors is so focused on data. Then I think if we put our attention to what's coming, the regulation, legislation activities, there's a lot of these manual tasks, and we know a lot of this is already being considered and written into the new standards, draft standards, as well as the new Aged Care Act. There are references about where computers infer or make decisions. There needs to be traceability. So the fact that that is language that's going to be in the new act means that this is coming, and government and health care organizations are already preparing for it, and that responsible usage of it. And certainly with the AI, as as the team's discussed, I mean, there are language models, and the clinical information we have is a language of itself, and that's really where these language models can be quite powerful. But then you can really teach them and construct them in a way that if you have access to the data, then you're able to effectively tackle much wider use cases. But in this instance, we've had organizations saying that it's taking their RNs 40 to 55 minutes in a time and motion study to prepare one of those care statements as they have interpreted from the draft standards in the new standards. And so as a result of that, the large language models can effectively synthesize the information in care plans of that consumer or resident and really populate it in a format, tonality that the organization decides they want it to be written in, and effectively becomes an automated task. And that's really where the power of AI is coming from. And then I guess we put our attention to other standards and other manual tasks, and we think about our quality teams and the type of work they do, and the skill set of actually understanding a standard as a policy for an organization, and then applying that through all of the data that you have. We do that manually today for organizations, but in the future, you can train an AI model to effectively evaluate all of your information under one standard or many standards, and really in real time have feedback as to how you're competing or meeting those outcomes. Are you in breach? What does that look like? And that's really the power of how this information, how quickly this technology can really support us. And then some of the other areas that is part of that automation too is that the big problem our sector has is about how many systems and silos of information that data is kept in. We have over 13 care management systems just in residential aged care. And speaking with some colleagues last night, I think they were saying that if you add in all the home care and other applications, it's about 43 different systems that service aged care and home care together. So all of those vendors and software have databases which their information resides in, but they don't speak to each other, and it makes it very hard for us to assess what's happening without going right into that system in that area. So that's really where and why we started, and then really the outcomes that are coming from that point are changing with each organization that we interact with, because the people on the floor, once you start understanding the power of this technology, then the ideas really start coming out. But where this all started for us was really an internal exploration about a year ago, where we were looking at how we can support our clients, support the industry on really a problem that we feel the industry funds about $500 million to be in control of. The funding of the RNs, the ANAC coordinators, the consultants, the software, the tools, the reporting, the BI, all the things that we invest in just to have an understanding of, are we getting the right amount of funding for the care that we're providing? And when we don't, how do we then track that insight? How do we corroborate it, put it into an action? And so that real summary is there from steps 1 to 5. And I guess the power of what AI can do is it really can take steps 1 to 4 and put it into something that we can run over 6,000 residents in a second. And the results of all of that comes back with then effectively an informed list of insights from just how we are providing care, how that care is being documented, and all the insights from the contributions of all those team members across all of those facilities within an organization. And that is the power of augmenting and automation of AI. And I guess to the other point that I would like to caveat here is that this isn't something that would replace a job in that sense. It's about ensuring that a lot of our highly productive and quality clinical teams that are spending a lot of administration time, which we would put into categories of non-value add, or now the department's even labeling a lot of the ANAC work as not, a direct care. So these are the areas where organizations are looking to do those non-direct care tasks, smarter. And so that's really where we thought, well, this is a good use case, because the components that you need to train these models, you need the data, you need an understanding of the process, the personas that lead it, if there's legislation, all the outcomes that gives meaning to the data, and then effectively the technology. And I guess that's where we found ourselves in a unique position of having all three of those, being consultancy with that rich knowledge and understanding, so we don't need to borrow team members to pull them off projects to help the technology go. And I guess the process that was required then, that we refer to in getting this data out, because it all starts with having structured information, structured data. And as Andrew said, we started that journey with the Medicare data set over a decade ago, structuring Service Australia information for providers so that they could have meaningful insights out of their payment statements and make actions to ensure their entitlements are correct. And we have now just applied that technique, the approaches we've been using for well over 12 years now, and applying it now to the clinical management systems, and really getting pulled in that direction. And so really the stage starts with the ingestion and then storing of that information in a safe and secure way. And so certainly with all of our data practices, we've taken a really a leading position in the industry, getting ISO accredited levels, really supporting with the top technologies, and even before government mandated that data reside onshore, taking those actions before they were even parts of the Data Privacy Acts. And then after we have the information actually free of its encumbered system, whether it's iCare, LeadCare, eCase, PCS, Manad, Sarah, whatever system you're utilizing, then we take the data out of that, and then we have to transform it into a standard operating model, our clinical model. And that's really where government will have a play in this when they define a standard. But at the moment, for us to make AI work, it needs good structured data. Otherwise, the information's incomplete, and you hear this terminology about models hallucinating, or the results are not completing in the way that you would expect. And so that's really the standardization component. And then really the final step is the fun part. That's really where the creativity comes out. Once you have steps 1 and 2 done, which is no small task, then the world's your oyster. And that's really where the fun starts with our research programs, and really going through those specific questions, using existing models all around the world. So for our purposes, we're not actually building models. There's plenty of models out there. Even some of our government organizations like CSIRO have models, large language models, available for Australian sovereign businesses to utilize. So we explore a lot of those with our partners, but we have to still train them in a way that we're teaching them how to think like an ANAC coordinator or a quality officer. And in that process is really where the magic happens. And then it's an iterative process to keep building up on the results as you see it and continue to train it. And where this is then going is that these models around the world are continually being trained by governments, by other healthcare jurisdictions, and they're available for really the greater good of humanity and for advancing healthcare outcomes and practices. But in this instance, we use one of the healthcare models in the Americas called, it's a large medical model. So this model has over 160 million patients that have been mapped in their journeys with deterioration and comorbidities. And effectively, as we put the data sets that we have in the same structure, which that model can accept, we then can start to see simulations of a resident's future. What will happen to this cohort of consumers? And this is just one example of an event we did for a client where we were looking at a group of about a couple hundred residents in a facility. And the spike there that you see is really the cohort of residents that are going to have a marked deterioration in their mobility needs over the next 3 to 5 months. And specifically preparing ourselves and preparing the staff as well as the families for how we can do something good with that insight. And that's really where the research side comes in. that is an insight, but what do I do with it? And that's where the innovation comes from, is that and this isn't us, this is really the facilitation component and the organizations coming up with the ideas. But this group wanted to create more additional service outcomes for families that also help them understand the deterioration pattern of their loved ones. And so speaking from personal experience with a father-in-law who went through this journey with Parkinson's, this group actually came up with this concept of the Parkinson's Warrior Program, which they wanted to put into additional service package, which really brought extra physio, extra weight training, mobility, balance, and more interaction than what is above and beyond what effectively we have in our resources under the government funding to provide, but then really start to put their own stamp on it and differentiate themselves as a provider who gets Parkinson's and gets the family and can help families navigate what is going to happen with the deterioration of someone with Parkinson's. So that's kind of exactly where I feel the power of it needs to stay and where it needs to go, but it can't happen until we have structured data. And so this has really become a second journey for us in this process, because when we put our attention to this, we were thinking mostly about the models, the AI, that technology, but really that technology doesn't work unless you have that data. And so the concept of the data sphere that we had to create was really about standardizing clinical data sets. And certainly that is a big problem for us in Australia. And we have a number of agencies that are determining or defining milestones, and we have to be able to move resident information into other adjacent healthcare systems, and it has to be in certain formats. And these are things that we feel we can also provide if vendors are not in an ability to have their systems in a shape and form that they can actually transfer an admission or a discharge from a hospital in a FHIR format. And so that's where our partners come into it, such as InterSystems and some of the technologies that the CSIRO have come out of. But that really enables us to take the data sets out of all of those care management systems, medication management systems, home care systems, and then start to really structure it into a standardized operating model, which then we can utilize for further advancements of these research projects. We can also open up to government agencies if they want to do their own development and testing, software vendors as well. The data sphere is something that is really what is holding us back as a country to really get in control of how information is shared and the outcomes of these programs. And I think that was also corroborated by a lot of the frameworks that some of the providers and very large providers have been having difficulties with in their own internal data science and AI engineering teams, is that they are building these algorithms and machine learning concepts and AI models, but they're just not having luck because the information in the care management system is not cutting the mark. And that's really where our second sort of horizon is going with this. And I guess what guides all of this, and some of the questions in the chat, was really about a mixture of things. Certainly, when you get into some of the more experimental aspects of AI, and some of it starts to turn into sci-fi elements, and we're certainly not going in that direction, but CSIRO does have ethical AI frameworks, and we're finding even more organizations are starting to even have ethic committees that we have to present to on the research projects before they can commence when you start dabbling with AI and some of these structures. And this is just an example of one of those ethical frameworks that we align to. But also within that, you can see privacy and data security. That's certainly is always a must for any practices. And so as you explore vendors or work with other technology teams and so forth, those ISO accreditations are very important for you to seek out because this world is changing fast, and it is a world that that a lot of people don't understand yet. And some of the comments that questions that came into the chats were questions about, well, if is information I put into ChatGPT through safe? Is it closed? And really the response is it depends. If you're using the OpenAI interface, Well, then, no, it's not. So if you have proprietary code you're building and you're trying to, again, propel how fast you can do that, there are cases where organizations like Samsung had their code taken because engineers were using AI to generate it on free sort of models, and now it's out in the ecosystem. But the important thing to note is that those open AI sources are using models that you can buy access to privately. So ChatGPT-3, ChatGPT-4, we've dabbled and used some of these language models. They are expensive, but you're using them in your own closed ecosystems, your private cloud, AWS, Azure, instances to really explore those specific use cases that you want to test and run through.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks particularly because I know it's very hard to condense 100 hours of information into 15 minutes. But yeah, I thought you did a really great job there of hitting some of the high notes of things that we've learned and what we've been doing. And I just want to reiterate, it is a very, in some ways, it's a complex technology, but in other ways, we can apply it quite simply, and we are applying it quite simply to some very specific use cases. We expect to have an operating version of the ANAC forecaster, for example, within weeks. So a lot of it's moving really, really quickly. Another point you made there about the data is it's really interesting that we talked to a provider with a few sites, and the problem manifests as not being able to see the information they're looking for, like Justin. But then we go and talk to Bupa, and their problem is less about that, not being able to see the information because they've got people and manual and they can do it. But it's more about the scale. They've got the same problem, but it's like they've got hundreds of people, thousands of people. And so it's just the same problem at a different scale. What's interesting is the ubiquitous problem, which is the data problem. It just manifests differently at different places. One person's talking about it as not being able to get the information they need. One person's talking about it as just not being able to manage the information at a large scale. Same problem. It just looks different. Another thing that you brought up that I think is worth mentioning is around consent. So all of this data we're using for the purposes of the business, all of the consents that come with using that information is the same, whether we're using it with AI or we're not. And Rob definitely touched on security. Security of data these days, cybersecurity, we're ISO accredited. That's a minimum. It's an absolute standard. You need to be able to manage your data securely in this day and age. It basically goes without saying. So anybody who doesn't have that accreditation and isn't managing their data to that level is taking big risks that we don't. So now back to the panel. So we've got a bit of time now to come back and say, what did we think about all of that? How does that make you feel? What are the use cases? One of the questions that I put out to all of the people listening is, what are the use cases that you want? What are the problems that you want to solve today? Those nagging problems that don't go away, those ones that take you so much time, those ones that if you could only know this, things would be so much different or so much better. But for you, Sue and Phil and Justin, what does the future look like for you? Where do you think your organization's heading next? And what does all of this mean for the industry? Sue, we'll have another go at starting with you.
Thank you. Hopefully better this time around. Very good.
All good.
Yeah. So look, for our organization, just in general, adoption, take-up of technology is going to be critical. AI will definitely have to have a focus. And I think one of the things that we probably don't pay enough attention to when we look to things like this is that change methodology and trying to make sure that, there's lots of rhetoric around AI and technology in general doing away with jobs, and there is that fear factor there. And what we've seen with our IH Health Service is, you're replacing clinicians and so on. Well, no, we are supporting existing workforces to deliver better services and to allow services to focus on what really is important, and that is the core service delivery. So I think that's a key message going forward that we need to be stronger on. And I think the other thing that we also need to be stronger on moving forward is to make sure that we've got some really like we've all got clinical governance models, and you know, they're a must because you know, that's what we're supposed to have. But do we really have a focus on clinical governance models that support the adoption of technology as it is used for delivery of clinical services? And particularly from an AI perspective, I can guarantee you there is absolutely no clinical governance framework that exists that will cover off supporting that piece around AI. And we've experienced that with our IH Health Service, where from a virtual care perspective, there is very little around the world that supports that kind of model of service delivery. And we've had to create it ourselves, which obviously we're very proud of, but it is a completely different model to what you have now without that technology component. So a lot of work, you know, will need to be done, you know, to make sure that we get it right, that our clinicians get it right, because we don't want all of this wonderful technology, you know, not delivering what it needs to deliver because we haven't supported it through frameworks, appropriate adoption of frameworks. So yeah, so adoption of AI. I did read somewhere the other day that the digital health market, for example, is going to be worth $650 billion in 2025, which is more than Australia's GDP. So the future says we've got to look to the future. It is the future, but we also need government support to help fund it as well. That's another critical aspect.
Yeah, I think that's
probably enough from me.
No, that's some really interesting points there. And the budget did have a chunk of money, you know, for digital, and hopefully that money's not all going to go into back office systems for the department, but some of that money is going to be available to support this kind of research. Yeah, a really great point you made there about your eye aging, where I know that we're talking to you before that you know, an unforeseen benefit was you tapped into a hidden workforce of clinical professionals who want to work from home, and you're not replacing jobs, you're finding people who didn't exist before. You know, in a very tapped out labor market, you're finding hidden pockets of resources. So I love that. That's what innovation's all about. You know, the unforeseen advantages. So fantastic. Thank you so much. I've also heard a lot of people taking the opportunity now to review their clinical governance, their models of care and their clinical governance frameworks, because ANAC and the care minute ratios and how they're driving the care minutes and the staff ratios are starting to change your staffing mix and the way that you're thinking about it. So organizations are starting to review their models of care anyway and make sure that, you know, quality is at the center of what they're doing. So what a great time to be, take your point, Sue, to be thinking about the impact that technology will have on those models of care as well. Excellent, excellent. Justin, why don't we go to you next?
Yeah, look, I think the biggest challenge, the biggest thing we're looking forward to moving forward is around those efficiency gains. That is absolute. I think that's number one for us, certainly, because of those workforce issues that we're all having. Really trying to focus on that is what we want to make sure happens. And useful data, I call it useful data. So in other words, getting the data, but making sure we use it for the right purpose. We collect a lot of data at the moment, and a lot of it just sits there. I really see the AI models allowing us to use that data to make more intelligent decisions around prediction, around practice that we're doing, those type of things. So it's going to help us in that space. And that's the sort of area that we really want to focus on, is that useful data. But picking up on a point that Sue said around the communication, I think that's the other piece around it, is that there's so much unknown out there because it's such new technology. And, you know, we go back 12, 18 months ago, we would have engaged a programmer to help write a program. We recognised there was an issue in our quality system around trying to analyse this data and trying to pull it out. We would have engaged a programmer to do it. It would have been one specific program, would have been closed, and we wouldn't have been able to do a lot with that as things move forward. AI opens up those opportunities to go, well, we can continue to change. So that's really what we're trying to do with it, is make sure that it's flexible enough with all the changes coming, the new act, et cetera, so that we can actually look at introducing new items into that. So I think the exciting part for me is that it's going to unleash the staff more on the floor, being able to do more things to improve the life of the residents, and that's the key to all of it. Is that collecting the data is not going to go away. We're still going to have to do it, but understanding it and utilizing that the data that it's giving you and trusting that data. I think I know for our organisation, once I can trust the data and trust that the AI model is doing what we're asking it to do, I think that'll give us even more efficiencies, which in turn flows onto the residents. So so I think it's the efficiency gains, the data usage, and the predictive stuff and the practice changes that'll come from that. That'll be our focus in the next sort of 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, do you think it's 12 months away? Do you think that one of the key messages I wanted to get across today is, it's a big picture thing, and all those data spheres, and we can move in all these great directions, but some of these deliverables are really close, really right here, right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Thanks, Justin. Phil, what are you hopeful for?
Yeah, look, I'm really lucky. I work with a team that is really, embraces all new technology, and AI is certainly on that list. We did a brainstorming session. We've identified 31 ideas or areas that AI can help us with. And that list ranges from using AI to help screen potential candidates at during our recruitment process, right through to improving asset lifespan of underutilized assets and automating maintenance efforts. So it's a really broad range. One thing we are doing now that we're looking forward to AI helping us with is I guess motion sensor technology in our homes. So we opened a new home earlier this year, a 108-bed home in Perth, and we partnered with our Callbell technology provider to integrate passive resident monitoring into every room. We've removed formats, we've removed sensor beams, any other physical sensors, and replaced it with 2 motion sensors, one in the bathroom and one in the bedroom. And they look similar to your home security system, it's that white with a box on the wall. And today we can identify how many people are in each room, and that system allows us to alert us if a resident wanders into someone else's room. Where are they in the room? Are they in the bed? Are they sitting? Are they standing? Are they in a chair? How long has someone been in the bathroom, for example, so we can see if they prompt us if they might need some assistance. If they move, so if they get out of bed and have falls risk, we can be alerted straight away to help them. It can identify a fall as soon as it happens, so it's no longer resident found on the floor, but we're alerted straight away if someone does fall in its scope or view, I guess. And with the help of smart ID tags on our staff, we're able to see it maps where our staff are in the building at any one time. So we're able to get to our staff and know they'll respond to that call bell or whatever. And all this integrated into our call bell system, and we talk about privacy, it's really important for us to protect our resident privacy. So it's only using sensor technology, no cameras at all. There's no video recorded. So that's today. And tomorrow we're thinking about, how can we use this system with AI to identify things such as decreasing mobility trends? Maybe residents who are getting an unsteady gait, which could lead to a fall before it happens, and prompt a physio review or a nursing review to preempt that and cut that off. Or residents are becoming more isolated. They're not leaving their room, they're not getting visitors, and help us combat loneliness in our homes. Using this data, it's about informing our clinical teams and alerting them to potential deterioration or other before we identify it, before we recognise it. There's also a real game changer for me in staff education, using AI tutors that can adapt to your individual learning styles. So mentoring you in your first language and then using that to help improve your English at the same time. Uploading content, like I mentioned, maybe a textbook, allowing our staff to ask AI questions in their native language, and not just giving them answers like a Google search would or old AI would, but now it can help you understand a concept, not just not just give you a verbatim answer. Translate that text if you're from a cold background, and soon we'll incorporate augmented virtual reality into that training experience for our staff to really make it immersive and all. And we talked a little bit about clinical monitoring, and I guess my mind goes to where is next for that. Health has been using monitors forever in the form of pulse oximetry, ECG, auto BP cuffs. And AI is going to let us take a quantum leap forward in that monitoring. Using wearables or movement monitors or who knows what, AI will combine all that information it collects with progress notes, pathology reports, past medical history, medication profiles, whatever. And based on all that data, it will allow, it'll help even what took the most experienced doctor hours and hours. It can suggest your clinical team perform assessments or suggest a care review based on the trends it's seen and what it's learned from other cases. And that's allowing us, again, more timely referrals, not about replacing the clinician, but pointing the clinician in the right direction and telling them what to look for. So we're getting better, I guess it gets better return on that investment in clinician. They're not looking, they're just responding. And I guess also recognising that deterioration that Rob mentioned, it's not just about responding and getting better care outcomes, but it's also in aged care about providing better palliative care sooner for our residents. That's what we're thinking.
Thanks, Phil. Really interesting ideas there. Just a quick one more quick question. What advice would you give people listening today about taking the first step? Just making a first step.
Yeah, I guess a couple of things. For yourself personally, go play with ChatGPT. Don't put anything private in there, but go play with it. Put in a PDF and ask it questions about it. Put in some legislation or the aged care standards and interact with the document. For an organisation, I guess my advice would be sort the data out, as I sort of pointed out. So the key to successfully implementing AI is good clean sorted data in a way that AI can access it or not access it if you want to restrict it. And that allows, once you've got that, you can use the technology any way you like. So for ideas you hadn't even thought of now, once you've got that data in a format that can be read and interacted with.
Yeah, Justin, Sue, anything to add to that?
I guess it's more, I agree with Phil. It's really understanding what it is. It can be really daunting to start with. So starting with ChatGPT or something like that is a really good start because it can be quite daunting when you first see that first letter or whatever it is pop out and go, oh my God, this is going to take my job and I'm going to be out of work. And once you understand what it really does, that opens up what the options are. So it's really about understanding, before it's going to boards and those sort of things, understanding what is it exactly, what does it do? And someone explained it to me as traditional computing, programming, etc., was coming in from the back end and understanding all the bits and pieces about this one piece of software. AI is more around coming from the front because it's the person in the front using that data. So it really puts it in that perspective of you're not worrying about what's in the computer. It's more about how are you pulling that data and reading that data that's in there. So it's really understanding what the model is going to look like and how you can what it does before you go down the step of let's roll it out.
That just I guess before you set out on that particular journey, look at what.
I'll see your microphone got again. Oh no.
No.
Something happened. Whatever you did last time. We are running out of time though, so I just wanted to say thanks so much to Sue and Phil and Justin for joining us. Those very real perspectives are very much appreciated. Thank you for everyone who commented in the chat. We'll definitely get back to all of you on those messages either directly now or through the content that we provide in the next weeks or so. I just wanted to leave this here. We are running these research projects. If you don't know where you want to go with AI and you don't know if you understand it, we are running these research projects. They are designed to take you from where you are now to where you want to go in a 6-month program. So they're all about helping you understand how to practically use AI. And the question we wanted to leave you with is, what is the use case that you wanted to AI to help you with? What is the what is the one thing in your business that that you are trying to solve and trying to fix, and how might AI help you? But if you want to be assisted on this journey, definitely come and talk to us. We're learning, we're building, we're discovering. Would love you to get on that journey with us. And let's one of my favorite sayings is, if you want to go somewhere faster, go on alone. But if you want to go further, go with others. And that's what we're inviting you to do now. Our next webinar is extremely important because as we come to the end of the financial year, we want to hit the elephant in the room. Let's talk about profitability. And whether you're a not-for-profit or whether you're a surplus or a profit, what is the industry going to do over the next 12 to 24 months? What are the opportunities and what are people doing and what are people talking about as it relates to how we will continue to drive financial sustainability. Financial sustainability is a core element of better care. So how are we going to, what are the opportunities to drive profitability and surplus to support better care over the next year or two? What all the things that have changed and all the things that are coming, we're going to be talking about them in the next webinar. So definitely join us for that. We'll have another panel talking about that, and that will be very, very interesting. We may even have a response to the task force report by then. So who knows? We'll fingers crossed. So thanks very much for joining us today. That's our time. As usual, thank you so much to the panel. Thanks, Rob. Thanks everybody for taking this time to be with us, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.
Thank you all.